Hi, and welcome to the Role Model series. Here we talk with some of the top minds in astrophysics. Real conversations about their work, their stories, and what life as an astrophysicist is actually like. These quick 30-minute interviews give you a glimpse behind the scenes. So let's get started. Today, we are joined by Dr. Arnab Rai Choudhuri, one of India's most distinguished scientists and a professor at the Indian Institute of Science. He spent years unraveling the sun's magnetic mysteries, pioneering solar dynamo models, developing the widely used Surya code, and shaping how we understand sunspots and solar activity. With influential publications and years of mentorship, Dr. Arnav's work continues to guide the global solar science community. And I couldn't be more excited to sit down with him for this conversation. So, I wanted to begin by asking you, what drew you so deeply into plasma astrophysics?
Well, my getting into this field of plasma astrophysics, that is something which just happened. So, without any very deliberate and conscious plan. So, as a result of many sequence of events during my student days, uh, around the age of 24, I found myself at the University of Chicago working for my PhD under the supervision of Professor E.N. Parker. He passed away about a couple of years ago, but he has been regarded as the world's most famous theoretical plasma astrophysicist. And I got interested in this field, hooked into this field, and when afterwards for many years I kept working in this field. So it's not that I had any kind of feeling that God specially created me to do research in plasma astrophysics or anything like that. So there are many other areas of physics which also interest me and in which also I would have enjoyed working. So this plasma astrophysics just happens to be the field in which I got into. So that is a short answer to your question. And now, do you want me to give some more details about my student days, which uh, landed me in the University of Chicago to work with Professor Parker?
Yeah, definitely, Dr. Arnav. Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell a little bit about my beginning. So I did my BSc at Presidency College, Kolkata, and my MSc at IIT Kanpur. So during my BSc and MSc days, I was fascinated by the mathematical beauty of theoretical physics. And what intrigued me most is that this mathematical beauty is not something very abstract, but it has connections with the real world around us. And this beautiful structure, theoretical physics, that can be applied to explain many real phenomena in the world around us. So eventually, when I started thinking of making a research career in physics, I wanted to work in an area of physics in which there is a beautiful mathematical formalism, and I would be able to do the kind of research by using that mathematical formalism to explain natural phenomena. So the question was to identify such a suitable area of physics. And before I went to IIT Kanpur, I never thought of going abroad for my research. I come from a middle class family. My father was a college teacher. And in those days, Indian middle class families would never think of sending their children abroad for higher studies at the family expenses, because for Indian middle class families at that time, it was just not affordable. So I knew that I could go to study abroad only if I had full financial support. So after going to IIT Kanpur, I came to know that many of my senior students who had studied there had gone to top American universities with full financial support. So I figured out the procedure, how that happens, and then I took examinations like GRE and TOEFL and then applied to several American universities. And from about 5 American universities, I got offers for PhD admission with full scholarship. And out of these 5 universities, perhaps University of Chicago was the most famous. So that's why I took that offer. And after I went there, at that time at University of Chicago, the system was that students would take courses, several courses for 1 year, and only at the end of 1 year, they would decide about their supervisors. And I was lucky to have a fantastic course on plasma astrophysics taught by Professor Parker. So I was almost bowled by the beauty of that subject, and I felt that this is a field in which I would enjoy working. So at the end of the course, I asked Professor Parker whether he would like to take me as a student, and he agreed. So that's how I ended up this field, and that is my story.
It's very interesting to hear the journey into you getting into the field and the role Professor Parker played in introducing you to the field, and especially your course from India to coming to University of Chicago. I think it's a very interesting route of how you did get into the field. And talking about mentors and how professors have played a role in your life, is there a teacher whose lessons have stayed with you throughout your journey? And if so, how did their influence shape the astrophysicist and the teacher you eventually became?
Okay. Okay, so I think several teachers certainly influenced me. I have already mentioned about Professor Parker, who became my role model for research. And as I pointed out, that he was a very good teacher also. So, and his course on plasma astrophysics made me interested into this field. And I would say that among many other students who influenced me, I can talk about one person who influenced me deeply at the very beginning of my college life. That was Professor Amol Kumar Rai Choudhuri in Presidency College, Kolkata. And his teaching was so powerful that it could almost transform a student's life. And in fact, listening to his lectures for the first time, I started thinking that I would like to be a theoretical physicist. And although I know that I do not have his teaching ability, but still, after many years, when I had to teach physics courses at Indian Institute of Science, IISc, I remember that I consciously tried to imitate Professor Amol Rai Choudhuri's teaching style. And I would also mention that he was a very modest person, and he would never try to tell us about his very high international reputation. So though we hero worshipped him for his outstanding teaching, I have to confess that I and probably many others in our class, did not even know what was the level of his international reputation. So only much later I came to know that he was one of the most famous scientist in the world in the field of general relativity. So I am lucky that in a formative year of my life, I was influenced by somebody like him. I could come in contact with him.
It's very heartwarming to hear the role that your teacher played in a way igniting that interest, and I'm sure you would have done so for so many students of yours as well. And talking about more about plasma astrophysics, can you share more about what your research has focused on over the years and why it matters, not just to physicists, but more broadly to everyone?
Why it matters, that probably should be judged by others and not by me. But let me say a few words about what sort of research I did. So probably you know that on the surface of the sun, we see some dark spots known as sunspots. And nearly 200 years ago, and in fact, in the exact year 1843, the German astronomer Schwabe discovered that the number of sunspots seen on the surface of the sun goes up and down in a periodic fashion, in a cyclic manner, with a period of about 11 years. And as the first clue as to what is the physical nature of sunspots, that came in the year 1908 when American astronomer Hale discovered that sunspots are regions of strong magnetic field, about 5,000 times stronger than the magnetic field near magnetic poles of the Earth. And why does the sun have this kind of magnetic field? And now we know that many other astronomical objects, stars and galaxies and planets have magnetic field. So why do these astronomical objects have this magnetic field? And in the sun, why this magnetic field is concentrated in these dark regions, these sunspots, and why these sunspots have this 11-year cycle. So these are some of the questions which we investigated in our group. And the material of the sun is in the plasma state, which is often called the fourth state of matter, beyond solid, liquid, and gas. So we have to invoke principles of plasma physics to study this phenomena. And I may mention that the currently widely accepted theoretical model for the 11-year sunspot cycle is the flux transport dynamo model. And in our group, we were able to make some very crucial contributions in the development of this flux transport dynamo model. In fact, a paper which we wrote in 1995 is considered one of the foundational papers in this theory. And about the later developments, I can mention one thing, that if a sunspot cycle is strong, if there are many sunspots in that cycle, then that cycle tends to produce many solar explosions like solar flares and coronal mass ejection, which affect our Earth in various ways. So one very important question in our subject is that before the sunspot cycle begins, can we figure out whether the upcoming cycle is going to be very strong or weak, so that we can be prepared for it, what is in store for us. So in 2007, we developed a theoretical methodology based on this flux transport dynamo model, how we can predict the next cycle. And when the next cycle reached its peak about 4 or 5 years later, then it was found that its strength was more or less exactly as we had predicted. So in this history of this subject, I think this was the first time that the strength of a sunspot cycle would be predicted theoretically on the basis of a theoretical model. So these will give you some idea about the kind of research which we had pursued in our group.
It sounds very exciting to hear about the development of the science and how the theory matched the discovery regarding the solar cycle. And it's really interesting to hear the way it proceeded. Knowing that it's such a beautiful subject which has so many mysterious moments, has there been a moment when mathematics or science has revealed something so profound that it may have moved you emotionally or in a way even unsettled you?
Yeah, I guess I think there's a beauty of this mathematical physics motivated me, and it sustained me throughout my life. But since you are mentioning about whether I had one such unusual moment, let me single out one such moment, and I shall not get into the details of the scientific work I was doing, because to explain that I have to go into quite a lot of technical detail. So avoiding that, let me just tell you about my experience. And we theoretical physicists, we work with certain mathematical equations, and we often think of our mathematical equations almost like children's toys with which we play our little games. But occasionally we become aware that these equations have a hidden power and may tell us things which we do not even want to listen. So that experience I had once when I was about 30 years old. I was doing my postdoctoral research in US just after my PhD. So doing some certain calculations, I found something totally unexpected, which nobody else in our field expected. And in fact, it was so unexpected that it indicated that much of the research which had been done in our field in the previous few years, they would have to be discarded if what we found that was correct. So it was almost sort of a terrifying experience to come face to face with this sort of a mysterious power of mathematical physics. And in fact, at first, I also had difficulty in believing my result. But then in the next few years, several other groups repeated my calculations and confirmed our results. And then we had to accept it. And then we realized that some of the research which was being done in solar physics at that time could not be the appropriate research. So that almost caused a sort of a paradigm shift in the field. So that was, usually that sort of experience only happens to very great physicists who work on important problems. I consider myself a very average scientist, so I was lucky that one such experience happened to me also in my career.
I think it shows the brilliance of a scientist that you are for you to have experienced such a paradigm shift in the field. It just shows the power of science and how much of an effect it has on showing us the true reality of things, no matter how much we expect it to not. Taking a little bit of a different route in our conversation, you have often joked that your students become brilliant because you had no technical skills to offer, but beyond the humor, what's the deeper truth about what makes a mentor truly impactful?
Well, this humor is not only a joke. It's true that I do not have do not have a very good technical skill. So if I have any strength, that is probably because I have sometimes been able to see connections between various things, which for whatever reasons others overlooked. Maybe they had much better technical skills than me, so they were involved in more technical things. So I could see more general connections. Anyway, coming to my students, I would say that I was generally lucky that over the years, many of the very good students in IISc who are interested in astrophysics approach me for PhD supervisions. And then I would try to assess whether they have the right sort of temperament who would enjoy working in this field, and also whether their personalities were such that the student and I would gel together. So usually when I would realize that in the case of some student things will probably work out well, then I would take the student. And for the other students who approach me, so I personally also would try to advise them to look for other supervisors and even help them. Also, I know that some of my colleagues have the ability to supervise almost any student, and I have to confess that I did not have this ability, so I had to be somewhat selective, and I did not supervise too many students. So in my career, I supervised about 7 students, but they all turned out to be very, very good. So in fact, I did not have to take too much trouble in training them. So I merely tried to make them excited about their field by pointing out some of the big challenges in our field, and then they took on their own. So all of them did very good PhD thesis while working with me. So, and my credit is very minimal.
Your effort in, I think, producing the top scientists in plasma astrophysics now, I think all that goes, the credit goes to you. And I think it just shows that sometimes it's important about having that match. That's what allows that mentorship relationship to really grow into a beautiful one. I remember reading that you were once warned that coming back to India might end your career. And now looking back to not just your career, but the array of scientists that you've mentored and produced in India, looking at what you've built, do you feel you fulfilled the one life goal that you had?
Oh, well, again, whether my scientific career has been fulfilling or not, personally, it gave me great pleasure. But whether to others it appears fulfilling or not, that others should judge. But anyway, after completing my PhD, I spent 2 years more doing postdoctoral research in the US. And I knew that things were going reasonably well for me. And if I wanted to settle in US with a job, I was reasonably confident that it would be possible. But I also knew that I was not a star in our field. I knew that I would not get a job in the top 10 American university. So if I wanted to settle there, I would have to look for a job in a middle ranking place. So whereas in India, I was lucky to get a job offer from one of the top places in the country, this Indian Institute of Science. And coming here, I had the opportunity of teaching fantastic students and also supervising fantastic students. So I'm reasonably sure that if I had chosen to spend my time in a middle ranking American place, I would not have got students of the same caliber that I got in IISc, and that was a big boost for my scientific research. And perhaps I should also say another thing that my temperament for research is such that I perform best in an environment where there is not too much of a high pressure. And I knew that in India, even in a best place in India, there would be less pressure than in US. And unfortunately, that is not true anymore. So nowadays, even I say that young faculty members in top institutes in India are under tremendous pressure to write many papers, produce many students, and have many projects. But that was not the case when I was young. So I could, in a sort of a leisurely manner, I could think about some of the most challenging problems in our field, and I could think about them deeply, and presumably I have been able to make some contributions in finding answers to some of the most challenging problems in our field. And I have a feeling that probably in a environment of too much pressure, I would not have been able to do that. I cannot make a general statement about everybody, but in my particular case, I believe that that returning to India, it was a good decision for me, and probably working in the IISc, I achieved more than what I could have achieved if I worked in a middle-ranking American university. But I also say that probably I was lucky to work in India at a sort of a right time when things were exactly appropriate for my temperament, and there was a support for science. And nowadays, I am often dismayed to see that in science in India, instead of red tapeism becoming less, I feel that red tapeism is going further, and there is somewhat of a less support for fundamental science. So some of these things make me feel somewhat disturbed. But I am lucky that during my career, things had gone very well for me. So I feel that I took the correct decision.
I think beyond just being able to grow personally as a scientist, you coming back gave us the chance to have such a great scientist in India and advance the field in India. And now to end, I would like to ask one final question. What do you think makes a scientist a good scientist?
Well, I wish I knew the answer to that question. If I knew the answer, maybe I myself would have become a good scientist. instead of an average scientist that I am. But anyway, that's a complicated question. So I can put it simply somewhat like this. So we all do research and try to find answers to a small area of science. But sometimes some people are able to produce scientific work which makes an impact in a very large area of science. So I would say that how good a scientist is that in a way that can be judged in over a how large area of science your work has made an impact. So that would be my answer. Still, I am very grateful to you that you wanted to interview me because I frankly believe that I have not done something extraordinary to be interviewed by you, but it was my pleasure.
Uh, I want to thank you for taking out the time. I think I learned so much during the course of talking to you today and been just inspired so much by your journey and your contributions to the field. So, thank you so much for inspiring not just me, but a lot of other students to study more about the sun and learn more about the plasma astrophysics that goes behind it. So, thank you very much. Thank you for watching until the end. We have learned not just about the sun and its magnetic mysteries from Dr. Arnab, but also about his remarkable journey and the qualities that define a successful and passionate astrophysicist. Hope to see you for the next episode.